Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic rolls on. Final half hour of our show on this Tuesday morning. Mentioned earlier that big night for baseball rubes here in the area as the American Association will hold its annual All-Star Game at Newman Outdoor Field, of all places. Last night they had Home Run Derby. Hawks standout Dylan Thomas was part of that. Looked like it was a great crowd up at Newman. And tonight, the best in the league will be on display with first pitch just after 7 o'clock. Hopefully weather will hold off there. I know we've got some rain potentially in the forecast, but hopefully like a typical Fargo night, it looks bad and then everything clears out and we get some sunshine and a beautiful night for ball. Our next guest we haven't had on in forever, so I'm sure this is going to be entertaining, who's managing, who played in the American Association or the Northern League All-Star Game way back when, World Series champion, Chris Coste joins us this morning. I'm obligated to say that. I also joked, by the way, before you came on, that you were certainly going to bring up 2007 or 2008, so you can do that whenever you're ready.
Well, in 2007, I came back and spoke at the All-Star Game when it was in Fargo, so let's just go that direction, So, so I got to play in the All-Star Game in 1999 when it was in Fargo, and then 2007, I was in the major leagues, came back for the All-Star break and went to the game, spoke at the banquet. So now our third All-Star game, I get to be a part of it again. So I guess it makes sense.
That's pretty cool. How you been, bud?
Yeah, pretty good. We're about 2/3 of the way through the season and things are going better. We've dealt with a lot of adversity this year, which every team does at various points. We've had the toughest part of our schedule over with travel and parts of the schedule where we don't have as many off days, and we battled through it, had some injuries, lost some guys to Mexico, like a lot of teams have. So we've gotten healthy. Our bats have kind of come alive a little bit more recently. Our pitching is the top in the league. So the last 35 games or whatever we have left, it certainly should be good. And so we get this little break for the All-Star break, and I know our players love this 3 to 4 days off, and the guys who are in the game love to be a part of it because when you play at this level, you're playing for your team, but really you're playing for your career, and the exposure that these guys can get by being all-stars is pretty important to them.
I look at your division, man. Sioux City, Kansas City, Sioux Falls. It's all pretty compacted. Is that how it's played out? That everybody has beaten everybody else so far this year?
Yeah, we've hung in there. We there was times we had about a 1 month period where we were really banged up and really compromised, and we're like, we just need to keep our heads above water, get to that All-Star break, we'll get better, and that's happened. And then Sioux City got off to a pretty good start. It was like, okay, when they going to cool off? And they just haven't, because they do so many things well. And Kansas City is kind of back to being the team that they were in the past. 7, 8 ex-major leaguers, a lot of AAA guys, and they've been really good. And Sioux Falls picked up right where they left off last year, being really good as well. And so, if top 4 teams make the playoffs, and right now we're in pretty good shape with that as long as we can stay healthy. We got Lincoln and Winnipeg behind us, but the teams that got off to good starts, they just haven't cooled down. Sioux City is just hotter than fire right now, and Kansas City is going to be really good. Sioux Falls isn't going anywhere. So it's basically just up to us to stay healthy, play well, because we are a really good team right now. We just have to find a way to be consistent and not allow Winnipeg and Lincoln to overpass us to get to that playoff spot at this point.
Are you still enjoying it? Still having fun doing it? It's a grind, it's a job, but are you still having fun every day going to the ballpark?
Well, when we win, yeah, it's great. And obviously I joke saying that, but that is part of the deal. Winning always makes things a little bit better, but we had our All-Star get together for the first time yesterday at the Home Run Derby, but we had our first little team meeting, and I just did my little 90-second speech, and talked about this level. And obviously in our league, the mantra is #we play to win. At the same time, this is about their individual careers as well. But the one benefit that we have as a group is the type of people we get to associate with for 4 to 4.5 months a year. People just like us, people just like me, that are the player that I was when I was a RedHawk. So to answer your question directly, yes, I still have a lot of fun, because even when your team isn't doing as well, or maybe you have a down year, I still get to be surrounded by amazing people, the same type of people that I was when I was a player trying to make it out of this league and get to where we're all trying to get to. So again, we could lose 4 or 5 in a row, and when I show up to the ballpark, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be around some pretty awesome people. Whether it's the coaching staff with Joe Dominic and Robbie Lopez, but the players. Kyle Krieger is going to start the All-Star game tonight for us. He's one of our starting pitchers, and then you go down the line to some of our other. Dylan Thomas is going to go down as one of the favorite guys I'll ever have coached or managed, and I could say that about a lot of these guys. We used to have guys like Sam Dexter and Leo Pena that have left their mark. And I always challenge, just like I did in college, I challenge these guys, you want to make the major leagues, but while you're here, leave your mark. Make sure your teammates always remember not just the type of player you were, but the type of person that you were, the type of teammate you were. Because Charlie Manuel, our manager with the Phillies, would always talk about that. Yes, we're here to win. We're here to win a World Series, but the type of person, the type of teammate you are will have a lasting impact on how your teammates remember you. And so that is very important for us.
I got to ask Coste, obviously the recent passing of Jeff Bittiger, what he meant to you going into the American Association Hall of Fame today. Bruce Thome also, the late Bruce Thome, going to go in. What each of those guys meant to you in your baseball career?
Well, we'll start with Bruce. RedHawks don't exist without Bruce. No. And there were other people obviously as well that helped bring the team, but he was the guy. And for so long, and it's, he loved the RedHawks so much that, when he had a chance to actually buy the team for him and his family, he did so. So it's still within the Thome family. And Bruce was one of those guys. He was almost in some ways like a positive George Steinbrenner. He demanded winning. And winning was not an option. Yeah. It was like, we're here to win. It's, yes, we want fans and we're going to keep the hot dog prices low, but holy cow, we are going to win. And he demanded that. And so he set that standard and put the right people in place early on by bringing in guys like Doug Simonic and Jeff Bittiger and John Dietrich, the first general manager. Those three guys are, in my opinion, the biggest reason why the RedHawks had so much success early on, and then the longevity of that success all the way through 2025. And then Jeff Bittiger, I give Doug Simonic a lot of credit for my career, for allowing me to become a catcher, which is ultimately what got me to the major leagues. But Jeff Bittiger is the one who put a stamp of approval on me being a catcher long term, because Jeff Bittiger, he was our pitching coach, but he was also our ace pitcher. Yeah. And it was not easy to win him over in any regard, which is why he made such an amazing scout, because he was such a tough judge of talent, ability, the ability to help a team win. He was incredibly gifted at so many parts of the game, but that was one of them, his evaluations. And so me being a catcher and winning him over was the only reason I was allowed to continue being a catcher and not just a 3-game series. So Jeff Bittiger, and then you go the long-term aspect of Jeff Bittiger with the RedHawks. Yeah. When Bruce Thome hired Doug Simonic and Jeff Bittiger is the only one, I believe, who's been on the RedHawks payroll and been a RedHawk literally since day one. Man. until the day he passed. And then he helped me build, for all those years when I came back on board, he helped me build the team. And now his son, Brett, who's a scout with the Marlins, he's kind of passed that torch to Brett. So the Bittigers are still helping us win ball games since 1996, all the way until literally to this day, the Bittiger family is still helping us win games.
What is it to have a good for a scout to have that eye? You've been around the game your whole life. What is it about it that they can sense or know? Everybody's seen Moneyball now, Coste, but what is it about? I know this kid could be really good.
Well, you speak of Moneyball, Jeff Bittiger was roommates with Billy Beane back in the day, and that's how he got the job with the A's, and that's how he elevated so high to such a high level major league scout, and was involved in some pretty amazing blockbuster trade. Blockbuster maybe is a powerful word, but some really big trades for the A's that Jeff Bittiger kind of like spearheaded a lot of those, and so. It's obviously experience. You have to have experience. You have to see every level of the game and understand it. But you have to have, and this is really important, you have to have an unconditional love for the game. That's probably the single most, even when the game kicks you in the tail, which it kicks all of us in the tail, it'll punch us in the chin and break our nose on occasion. You still have to love it. And whether it's December 15th or July 15th, you have to be a baseball person. The other thing is you have to be brutally honest with your evaluations and not be afraid to tell a player what he needs to hear. And I don't know if there's anybody better than Jeff Bittiger, because He wasn't afraid to offend people. He gave praise where it was due, as good as anybody. But if you needed to hear something, he had no problem telling you what you needed to hear. It reminds me of, and I'm sure you've heard the story, when Theo Epstein had to release David Ross and kind of tell him, like, listen, you have a reputation for not being a great teammate. And it changed David Ross's career and actually elevated him and made him a better player, eventual coach, and then manager at some point. So that's what Jeff Bittiger had. Unconditional love for the game, insane amounts of experience, and just, he was a baseball man. It didn't matter if it was December 15th or July 15th. Like a lot of us, he was a baseball guy every single day of the year.
I'm obligated to tell you, because you're going to remind me that as I look at the standings today, the Phillies are a half game ahead of the Mets. I'm sure you knew that, right?
Actually, I didn't. I know it's been back and forth like crazy, and we always have this fun Phillies Mets rivalry. But you know how I feel about the Mets. The Phillies are much more exciting when the Mets are also good, and vice versa.
Yes.
And you could throw the Braves in there to a certain extent. I know the Mets Braves, good rivalry, but Phillies Mets, when both teams are really good, it's so good for baseball. It's so good for both organizations, and especially the fan bases like you and I.
Well, that ballpark in Philadelphia, and you obviously played it, won the World Series there. When it's hopping, Coaster, there's not a better ballpark in the majors. It just, Citizens Bank, man, is unreal. When they're good, it is unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, and from 06 to 09 when I was there, especially when we started becoming better and the Mets were already really good. And I remember an interview with David Ross. I think it was he was on Letterman, or not David Ross, David Wright, on Letterman way back in the day, or Jimmy Kimmel, or one of those late night hosts. And they were talking about Phillies Mets, and he said about how at Citizens Bank he would look up at third base and there'd be fights in the stands between Mets and Phillies players. And when I saw the interview, it was like, I've seen that exact thing. We probably saw the same fights, and because it's so intense. And Phillies fans, they have this reputation. It all started with the Snowballs and Santa Claus back in the day. But the one thing and Mets fans are very similar too. They get this reputation, but the one thing that you cannot deny is they are honest. If you're playing really, really well, they're going to let you know that you're playing well. But if you're not, they're also going to let you know that you're not. So honesty is really all about that Northeast fan base.
I would say knowledge is another thing. Like the Philly fans, when I remember going out there covering you, they knew everything about you. Was that surprising, how knowledgeable they were, even for a guy like yourself who wasn't an everyday player at the time, but they knew everything about you?
Yeah, and that was one of the coolest things for me is I was, I had my moments where I was a good player and really helping the team wins, but I was essentially kind of a backup. I was more than your average backup catcher maybe, but I was still a guy, like 25th man on the roster half the time. And the cool thing for me is I could go to the mall in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, or King of Prussia or wherever else, and everybody would recognize me, but it was never a bother. It was like, hey, Coste, how you doing? Great game last night. Get him a night. I wasn't Chase Utley. I wasn't Cole Hamels where I was getting mobbed or, things like that. So I had the best of both worlds. I got to be recognized and known, and that was pretty cool, but never bothered because they always viewed me as like their buddy next door. I wasn't Chase Utley. I wasn't, I wasn't Brad Pitt walking down the street, which a lot of athletes are nowadays. So that was one of the coolest things. And so even now, the amount of times now where I have a friend or someone I know is like, man, I was just in Philadelphia and I was in an Uber and I brought up your name and they knew who you were. I retired in my last year at the Phillies was 2009. So we're talking 16 years and these people still know who I am. There was a professional wrestler at the game last night and he's from Philadelphia. And he's like, I've been a Phillies fan since I grew up. It's just part of our family. And he goes, I was really young when you were a player, but I remember you really well. So
that's awesome.
That's just the way it is in those areas.
That's so good. I love the time, man. It's great to catch up. Have a great time tonight. Good luck the rest of the way. I'll be in touch, okay?
You got it. Thanks for having me, Dom.
Good to see you. There goes Chris Coste, FM RedHawks manager. American Association All-Star Game is coming up tonight from Newman Outdoor Field just after 7 o'clock. Hopefully the weather will hold off. Had a really nice crowd last night for the Home Run Derby. We'll see what's on tap tonight. And the Hawks begin the second half of their season at home with Lincoln. Nothing better than a night at the ballpark, and they do it the right way up at Newman. We'll take our final break. We come back. We'll wrap things up, get you ready for a pretty good Sports Tuesday. We'll do that when Hot Mike wraps up after this.